The first Data Futurology event for next year is going to be Ops World, data-centric operations for business value. We're going to be hosting the community in person at the Sofitel Wentworth in Sydney on March 14th and 15th. We're going to be discussing operationalizing securely for business value, impact, and scale. What are we operationalizing? Everything across the data analytics and AI space. We're bringing all the ops perspectives together into this one event. So it's going to be data ops, operationalizing data pipelines, analytics ops, operationalizing our analytics, MLOps, and AI ops, about operationalizing machine learning and artificial intelligence in our businesses. We're going to be discussing processes, frameworks, the observability, and the future of this space. Check out the website for more and hope to see you there.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading specialist data recruitment business. With offices in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, they're experts at providing recruitment strategy and building data teams for clients across industries Australia-wide. They provide recruitment solutions for all roles across the data lifecycle, including data engineering, data science, advanced analytics, customer and marketing insights, business intelligence, data product managers, and data governance. They're skilled at finding the best permanent and contract hires for your business needs, as well as statement of work, project focus, data resources. At Talent Insights, relationships matter most. I can say from first-hand experience, Talent Insights are fantastic to work with. Whether you're a business leader within an HR network or a specialist data candidate, Talent Insights should be the first company you turn to for all your data recruitment needs. Find them at talentinsights.com.au.
Hi, and welcome to Data Futurology. Thank you so much for joining. Today, we're going to be discussing data science and machine learning platforms as a product. It's something that a lot of the audience has been asking us about. How do you take that product lens to create a capability within a large organization? And we have an excellent person to help us discuss that. Sanchit Juneja, he is the Director of Data Science and Machine Learning Products at Booking.com. Joins us today. Sanchit, how are you going today?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Felipe. I'm good. Thank you for having me here on the podcast. To give you a brief about myself, I am the Director of Data Science and Machine Learning at Booking.com. Obviously, I have worked across the industry. I have around 13 plus years of professional experience. I worked in Southeast Asia, I worked in Africa, I worked in US, and now I'm in Europe. I've worked across organizations like National Instruments, Rocket Internet, AppsFlyer, Paytm, and now I'm working with Booking.com. And I've been in this role for the last 2 years.
Amazing. Thank you so much, mate. And at the moment, so what is the main focus of your role at Booking.com at the moment?
Okay, obviously. So as we discussed, I'm a director product for data science and machine learning platform. What it includes is the data science ecosystem of even a big organization like Booking is up to a certain level of maturity. And if you're hearing a lot of industry terms, there's a lot of evolution happening in this area. So my main remit is to lead the next revolution, the next evolution, if I can say that, of Booking's data production, and get the products ready, make sure the data-enabled products that we are going to build are ready for the next journey. And it's public information that Booking is going for connected trip, and all of the things that we are doing are connected to the connected trip vision.
That's excellent. I've often wondered about when organizations have maturity in this space, and then you need to take things to the next level. How does that tide begin for the organization? How has it come about for Booking.com?
So I have friends in the top tech organizations. I have friends in Meta, I have friends in Google. Nobody is happy with where they are. So the industry evolves much better, much faster than either of us can catch up. I think the best you can do is the data ecosystem that you have right now, is it sufficing your needs, right? So it doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be as cutting edge as possible. And are you able to unlock business value with such an ecosystem? And if you are, then you are already there. But with booking evolving into the next generation as a travel experience app, we found that the data ecosystem has to evolve, and that's what we are doing. So irrespective of the technological trends, I think it's much more important that whether we are delivering business value in accordance to the company's vision, and that is the most important thing.
That's excellent. And when you're planning and implementing this work, what type of considerations do you have, and do you recommend for people to have on the data side, and then on the analytics side?
Now, obviously, I think one of the things that people do realize in this ecosystem, and they should, is that there's a lot of things that are happening out in the industry. And even if you are a big tech org, you don't necessarily need to build everything yourself. So the build versus buy call is something that is perennially on top of your mind if you're a product leader. Uh, there are so many things that are happening, nitty-gritties, so many core things that if you go on and build it inside your house, it will take you the next 6 months. But if you just buy a tool outside in the industry, it will actually be much more quicker for you. So I think that is one thing that is always on top of your mind, what to build versus what to buy.
And so it sounds like you're more on the buy camp than
No,
as much as possible. No?
no. So I would say I am more on the holistic evaluation camp.
Yeah.
So you are if you're a product org, you're a tech org, you do represent building a lot of things on your own. But you want to build things that are strategic, that are core to your heart.
Yeah.
But if anything that brings you closer to faster go to market is something that you want to do, right? At the end of the day, you want to unlock business value. So I am in favor of quicker unlocking of business value, be it by build or buy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And how have you found getting the either stakeholders or team members along for that journey and those decisions?
Absolutely. So I think if you look at the product manager as a role, I think the biggest spoke in that role is stakeholder management. And especially if you're building platforms, most of your stakeholders are internal. So you have to align your stakeholders a lot, especially if you're looking at a paradigm change in how data is seen. I'm not even generation the first generation, second generation, whatever paradigm, as we discussed already, right? It's the business value alignment that is more important. But any kind of change, if you want to bring into an org, requires a lot of buy-in. So the buy-in has to be both bottoms up and tops down. The leadership has to have a buy-in that, okay, this is necessary for the next step in our evolution. And the bottoms up buy-in is also necessary because at the end of the day, the developers and the PMs and the EMs who are actually on the ground are going to implement it. So it has to be very organic, very holistic, or it's not a good experience for either side.
Yeah, exactly. That's really good. And there's been a lot of people at least in our audience who have been interested in the products, in the product, I guess, track maybe within data science and ML. How do you define the product work in our space?
Obviously. So what I like to see is there's a very nice book I just read, which is Intensive Data Applications, How to Design Data Intensive Applications. It's by O'Reilly Publishing. I think it's a very nice book if you are looking at product evolution in terms of and how do you as a product craft leader look at this. So if I can maybe divide the ecosystem into data and machine learning, and then we can maybe further split it, machine learning, into ML ops and applicative machine learning. So if you look at data, data has multiple generation of products. The first generation of products is something like the basic data ecosystem, your data lake, your data storage, your data ingestion pipelines, etc. What we like to call it as a first generation product, and it's a standard term in the industry. These are basic systems. They're just like any technical system. So there's always a technical product management, technical acumen required. So there's a lot of work that has already happened here. But on top of these systems are second and third generation products built for data. And there's a lot of advent already happening in this space. So you can have, let's say, an experimentation tool built on top of a basic data ecosystem. You can have a segmentation targeting tool built on top of a data ecosystem. You can have data exchange ecosystems built on top of this. So this is the second or third generation of products that is seeing a lot of activity already in the market. And obviously, as we as product leaders need to be very cognizant of it. Now, if we come to the machine learning part, the machine learning part is neatly split into two areas, which is the ML ops layer, which is the ML tooling layer. A lot of activity already happening there, a lot of system activity. Already technical product management is very well established there. But if you look at the applicative ML side, the space is humongous, right? Everything from self-driving cars to drug discovery is happening on the applicative side. I used to be a chess player. AlphaZero has already beaten the best chess engines, right? So it's a very exciting space. And obviously, product managers have a part to play in it, but it's an evolving part. And I see that machine learning managers play a much more advanced part in that area rather than a product manager.
Yeah, that's really good. So it seems like your views on product management is that they need to be quite technical in our, at least in our space. Is that a fair summary? And then what are some of the other skills that you see as key for the role?
Absolutely. So even if let's say not technical, you need to be tech aware, tech excited, if I can say that, because the learning curve is so steep. You enter with a certain set of skill set, you cannot rely on those set of skill sets. So you should always be learning, be happy, and be excited to learn new things. That is definitely a very important skill set. Good stakeholder management is definitely a very important skill set. Being comfortable with ambiguity is very important because you're working with hitherto unknown systems. You're connecting these different kind of pipelines. You're working at a very different scale. Let's say if you are ever working in an OLTP, a normal transactional platform kind of a use case, the things that you take for granted, such as access management, etc., are not something you can take for granted at a large scale, right? So there are so many things that change when data grows at volume. So being open about new experiences, being open about learning is, I think, the very important skill.
That's really good. And how do you make the trade-off decisions around the product as you're either as you're implementing or building towards a vision? What are some of the trade-offs that need to be done in the product decisions?
Absolutely. So the trade-offs are multivariate. I think you always, as a good product leader, start with a product vision, and you are always trying to get there, but the road is never straight. So you take detours around the way, and the detours are realpolitik, right? So sometimes some priority comes up, which you have to do. Some system issue comes up that you cannot get around. Some scaling issues, some limitation comes up, because you're working in a platform, right? You are not delivering in silo. You're working with 10 different stakeholders in that, and any stakeholder, anything gets disturbed, you have to find a workaround. So you every day in your job, you work with trade-offs.
And what is the mindset shift that you would recommend for people that may be doing ad hoc pieces of work or kind of like one-off? What's the change of mindset from there to a platform perspective or a platform mindset?
Obviously. So let's say if you are working in a silo, doing an ad hoc kind of work, it's much easier to estimate how much work, how quickly you can do something, because it's only you, right? You are only building the thing, and worst comes to worst, you can be X or Y plus or minus, right? But when you are realizing and you are part of this big cog of a machine, you are some of different parts. So the planning muscle is very important. How do you align regularly with the other parts is very important. How do you make sure that what the other teams are doing and what you are doing is sharing the success? Because at the end of the day, they cannot be working towards your success. They should be working towards their own success, or else the motivation will die down. So some of these things actually are, you realize as you grow into a platform product leader, and you start to optimize towards those.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I really like that about being able to share the wins, build good relationships, keep up to date and connected with what's happening in the organization, and make sure that everyone's moving towards their goals. That's really good. And when you look back at your product journey, what well, I guess two questions. One is, what are you most proud of? And then another one is, what would you do differently?
So I'm proud of all the roles that I did, right? In booking, I've been in last 2 years, I worked on the OLTP platforms. I led the 0 to 1 for a OLTP platform, one of our order platforms, and I'm now doing the 0 to 1 to the OLAP platform, the data analytics platform. So I'm very happy. I'm very excited as long as I'm learning into the role. This has always worked for me. So I've been into the industry for the last 15 years. The one good thing is, once you have been in the industry, you start realizing what you like and what you definitely don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I definitely like a challenge. I like learning. So that has always worked for me. And any role that gives me that, I'm very happy on that. Right. And that has always worked for me. I think as long as I get that, and this is what I always tell, let's say, the PMs and the GPMs who work with me, is you have to find your sweet spot, what works for you. Right. And if that core thing works for you, everything else is immaterial. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And what are some things that you would have done differently when
Yes.
you look back?
Um, I think hindsight is always 2020, right?
Mm.
I think I had very good opportunities to get on the ground floor of some very exciting startups. I think that FOMO feeling never goes away. So I think in hindsight, if I had, let's say, 5 years, 10 years back, if I had a time machine and I can tell my 5, 10 years back, I might as well have said, okay, take risks, right? Yeah, I should have taken more risks. Yeah.
And were those risks about the type of roles to take, or the types of organizations to work in,
Yeah.
or the delivery of projects? What type of risks would those be?
Yeah, so from a role point of view, I'm very happy. I think product management is something that I really like and I would like to continue. I think the kind of risk would have been, let's say, in personal money matters. I could have invested in some areas where I didn't. I was much more conservative. Invest in some other organizations, some very young tech organizations that some of my friends built, which are doing very well right now, billion-dollar corporations. So from an investment point of view, I think I lacked a certain killer mindset, if I can say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And in your time in product management in the ML and AI space, how have you seen the space evolve?
Yeah. You whenever you enter into a role, you're always a student, right? And that's always a good mindset to have. Always be a student. I'm constantly on the hook. I'm constantly reading on stuff, right? And I'm constantly amazed by how fast the industry is changing, how fast the ecosystem is changing. So theoretically and practically, there's a big difference in how we see theory versus how we see practically. I'll give an example, right? If you're a young engineer, the first thing you see is, okay, monoliths are bad, microservices are good, right? And then you enter into the industry and see, okay, the biggest organizations in the world, the Metas and the Facebooks, they are still a lot of monoliths, and they challenge your theoretical knowledge, etc. That, okay, maybe not all monoliths are bad. Maybe in certain conditions, microservices are good and monoliths are okay, etc. So this paradigm change only happens once you start working. And I've seen the same in the data and machine learning ecosystem as well. There's a lot of theoretical knowledge to go about and a lot of theoretical practitioners to go about, but nothing beats actual practical on the ground experience.
Yeah, it's very true. And so definitely that we need the experience, and I think that the oh, I guess I wanted to ask you more about product management in our space, and how that's taken shape and formed or evolved. That I don't know, maybe a decade ago, maybe a little bit longer, there was no product management in for AI and ML, or maybe it was forming, and now it seems like such a key component of organizations that are taking this seriously. How did you see that we got from not having this discipline to it being a key capability of organizations?
Absolutely. So the 10, 15 years back, I think when I was in school, we used to learn about neural networks and network. So the fuzzy logic, the self-trained ecosystem, that was always part of the curriculum. That was always part of the understanding. It's just that we didn't have the computing power we have right now. The Moore's law has really kicked in. So I think that is a changing phenomenon, if I can say that, right? And what I like to see is, I think product manager as a role in one form or the other always existed. Product manager as a role, if we can actually define it in one word, is somebody who is talking about the customer experience, right? Let's say that your customer can be internal, your customer can be external. Somebody who is a customer advocate is a product manager, right? There always used to be a role 10, 15 years back when the tech ecosystem was in its first generation, second generation of tech organizations. They were mostly project managers, people who were talking directly to the customer, and they were saying, okay, bringing the requirements. Now, what has happened is the tech ecosystem has evolved so much. Products are evolving so much, right? And rapid deployment has happened. People can create their product like this right now. There are no code tools, right? So the products are evolving much quicker. That's why product management as a role has become so much more mainstream. It's actually one of the hottest careers right now, right? And so has been the advent of a new technology, the data and machine learning. And if I can club it all together, artificial intelligence, right? Just like any industry fad, you will see a spike. You will see a lot of adoption happen. And then you will see a fall. Then you will see, okay, the next abstraction over it. Obviously, I don't know what that would be, but the next abstraction will take over it. But just like any other industry, there would be a spike here, as we agree on, and then there would be a fall. This is what I foresee, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And in your case, who are your customers for your capability in your platforms?
Yeah, so I take care of an internal platform. So internal teams within the B.com ecosystem are my customers.
Yeah, great. And how do you interact, and how does your teams work with your customers?
Yeah, obviously. So a lot of interactions is ad hoc. It happens on a one-on-one basis, but there are a lot of formal processes around it as well. And how our systems interact with each other is obviously a medley of a dance, right? How our systems interact, there are system calls, there are human calls to each other, etc., etc. So there's a complex mishmash behind it, but a lot of alignment happens in interpersonal connections.
Yeah, and then how do you track the either the progress or the maybe the value? You're mentioning a strong focus on value for the organization. How do you track the incremental value that you and your teams are adding as a platform?
Absolutely. So this is what I like to talk to a lot of my PMs as well. So let's say if you're a front-end product manager, right? Your value is very apparent, right? You change one button, you have plus 1.8% of revenue, right? And that's why I like to call the front-end PMs as the first generation PMs. Those are the PMs that started out, let's say, when we started our marketplace kind of a product. But as and when the tech products are evolving, they're getting more complex. We are getting into platform product management. Though if let's say the impact of a product manager on a front end is y equal to fx. The impact of a platform product manager is a function of x. And we are building services that is actually enabling the front ends to impact the customers. So we are one layer removed from the actual customer, right? So a lot of times platform PMs don't get their due. And that's why getting connected to actual business impact is very important. And typically how it happens is, just like in front end, whenever you deploy something, you deploy it under an experiment. Similarly, whenever you deploy a platform, let's say a service or a subcomponent of a platform, you can deploy it under an experiment as well. So you can actually find out, let's say I deployed this service, which actually impacted the front end to do this much amount of business impact. So I actually enabled a multiplier effect on that business impact. This is how you as a platform actually encapsulate your value. You tell, okay, this is how my service delivered in terms of a front-end business value.
Yeah, I can see that. And what type of maybe tracking or lineage, or I guess the question is how do you keep track of the downstream impacts that are coming from as a result of the platform work?
Okay. So if you are mentioning about the industry term lineage, obviously, if you are maintaining a data ecosystem, you work in the ecosystem of lineage, right? And lineage is basically having your data ecosystem very well labeled. So let's say if I'm producing data and passing it around to the platform, I want to make sure that everything that is happening to data along the way is tracked so that I can keep a tab on if any manipulation on that data happens. So somewhere down the line, if let's say that data is forming a training set in some machine learning model, I can tell whether there's bias to that data or not. Obviously, we have similar systems for that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and how does your platform team work with areas like data governance, data management within the organization?
We have pillars on data governance and data management as well. We work very closely with these pillars, and they form a part of the data and machine learning platform ecosystem. Yeah.
And I know that you've been moving into evangelizing as part of the role. So can you tell me a little bit more about that aspect?
Yeah, obviously, evangelization works across levels, right? Internally, you're evangelizing the adoption of your platform. And that is a continuous process because your product manager, you're always selling your product, so always looking for adoption of your product, right? But you're also evangelizing a lot of good things that are happening within your ecosystem outside as well. And that's what you will see a lot of my team present in papers, etc., and research conferences, etc. A lot of what work we do is actually part of that evangelization outreach, so that the developers, the team who are actually building this are motivated because they are building something state of the art, and obviously they get the exposure that is present for them in the industry.
Yeah, that's really good. And what would be some of your top tips for people looking to do more evangelizing in their organizations and looking to get traction for their products internally?
I think there are a lot of fancy things you can do, but what has always worked for me is, as a product manager, your role is to influence people without an official hierarchy. And if you are doing that well, you are training that muscle, you will find ways to influence people. You'll find ways to reach out to leadership. You'll find ways to influence people who are above your station to your way of thinking. And that's why I really like the product management role, because it's an amazing role. You are actually trying to get people to do things without an official hierarchy for a very long time, right? Until you become a product leader, then you have a teams reporting to you. But for a very long time, if you're, let's say, a PM or a senior PM, then you don't have an official hierarchy, but you are working with engineering. You are trying to make them see your point of view. You're working with program management. You're trying to make them see your point of view. Similarly, I think if your storytelling is very good, and I think that is one skill that I rate above everything else in product management. If you can tell a good story, you'll be able to convince people to your way of thinking.
It seems like it's a very broad and very challenging role, in the sense that there's a lot of diverse skill sets that are required to be a successful product manager. What differentiates the good from the very good, or the good from the excellent?
I would never know. I rate myself as a below average PM, I think. Yeah, but I think, as I said, right, one thing that has worked for me is always be in student mode, always be in learning mode, right? Never get cocky, never get ahead of yourself. I think in the way the industry is evolving, it's so complex, it's so rich. And as and when you grow into the role, right, you meet so smart people, right? So keep yourself grounded, and I think things will happen.
Yeah, that's really great. And what do you see coming next in the industry, either from a PM perspective or from a data science and AI industry as a whole?
Obviously, I think I was part of the product school panel, and this is something that we discussed in depth, whether there's so much automation happening, right? So is the role of a PM in jeopardy, or is the role of a developer in jeopardy, right? I think one thing that I have thought a lot about this, and one thing that will not change, any amount of abstraction that we bring into the tech ecosystem or into the world that we live in, is that people will always work with people. That there would always be a place for somebody influencing somebody else. There would always be a place to sell something, whether you're selling yourself, whether you're selling your product, etc., etc. So I think I am pretty confident that PM as a role, it will evolve, but it's not going anywhere, right? So that is from a craft point of view, the product management point of view. From a data and machine learning ecosystem point of view, the scale is humongous, right? I read 2 articles, and next day there are 2 competing articles, right? So the things are changing very quickly, obviously. But what I'm very heartened to see is the pace with which the applicative ML part is growing. Right. As I said, right, I used to be a chess player. I'm a okayish Go player, and both of these areas have been really overtaken by AI. And the amazing part here is the AI is not as good as brute computing algorithms. So the AI does calculations in a much more humane way, right? So I will give you an example. The top chess engine is Stockfish, and it does a ridiculous amount of calculations per second, and that's how it's a top chess engine. But AlphaGo came in, and it does a fraction of the calculation to Stockfish, and it still managed to comprehensively beat Stockfish, right? So just goes to show that intelligence is much more nuanced than we give it credit for. The machine learning ecosystem has so many tricks up its sleeve, and that's why it's a very interesting place to be in.
Yeah, that's great, mate. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that's a fantastic note to end on. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your journey, for helping us clarify the role of product management in the space, and also discussing what's coming up next in the area. Sanchit, thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Felipe. Yeah.
Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.